Hi everybody, I am so excited that we are here and doing this. It's been a bit of a busy morning for me. I basically rushed the entire morning and now it's lunchtime. So I hope that you all are having a good day or evening depending where you are. Today I'm really excited to be able to share with you about myofascial pain syndrome and trigger points because this is just another one of those areas where we don't have a lot of information, and actually learning about these and starting to treat these and starting to work on my perpetuating factors has actually made a really big difference to my quality of life. So my hope is that by talking through what myofascial pain syndrome and trigger points are, and what are some of the causing factors, what are some of the symptoms that go with it, and how we can start to look at treating them. I hope that that will make a big difference for you as well. So I do these talks once a month over here on the page. I am from melissavsfibromyalgia.com. We've got over 200 articles over there. At the end of this talk, you will be able to go over there, and I've got a blog post on myofascial pain syndrome and fibromyalgia and trigger points, and it will have a toolkit there. So I'm going to give you some suggestions of things, and the blog will give you links. If you're super into this area and you really want to work on it, in the Melissa vs. Fibromyalgia membership group, I'm going to have a PDF download with the toolkit and a worksheet to help you work through it. But I think we've done enough preamble. I think it's time to start chatting through it. If you have any questions, feel free to ask them as we go. I'll do my best to answer. If I can't, I'll come back on and answer any questions that I can for you. So, myofascial pain syndrome is actually a term I didn't come across until 2017, which is pretty late in the game. I had already been struggling with it for a decade. With no help at all. So basically what happened is a physiotherapist explained what was causing my severe neck issues, and basically explained that it was a big problem in itself, and also that it exacerbates the fibromyalgia. And thanks to that physiotherapist, I have managed to change my life in the last few years. So what is a good definition of myofascial pain syndrome? So the best definition that I've come across is that it is described as hyper-irritable spots, usually on a taut band of skeletal muscle or in the muscle's fascia, and it's painful upon compression and gives rise to characteristic referred pain, tenderness, and autonomic phenomena. So what does that really mean? It means that you touch a trigger point. Say I've got a trigger point in my neck. They're good ones. If you push on it, it hurts, but it also causes referred pain to other places, and it also causes other issues. So for example, the trigger point in my neck can also cause severe headaches and nausea. There are trigger points in your jaw that can be mistaken for another issue called TMJ, but we can go into that stuff more later. It basically just causes a whole lot of pain, fatigue, and other symptoms. So a big question is whether or not trigger points are part of fibromyalgia. So there's quite a lot of confusion between the tender points of fibromyalgia and the trigger points. And of course, the propensity for medical professionals to kind of throw everything into the fibromyalgia basket once you're diagnosed is high. So basically, the tender points of fibromyalgia are not trigger points. So they are just painful spots at key points in your body. They may coexist with some trigger points, but they are not trigger points. Trigger points are something quite different, and they're actually treatable, which is one really important distinction. So whether or not you want to accept trigger points as part of fibromyalgia, there's always such an argument, isn't there, about whether something is or isn't something, and at the end of the day, it doesn't actually matter as long as we treat them. And once you're treating your trigger points, then you're accidentally treating the fibromyalgia, and you're creating one of those positive cycles where one helps the other. So is there any diagnostic criteria for myofascial pain syndrome? Not really. So because it doesn't have a universally accepted diagnostic criteria, it also means that there aren't really any stats on prevalence. but some research I was looking at does have an estimate using data around musculoskeletal pain, and it puts estimates of myofascial pain as a patient's primary complaint at around 30%, which is actually quite a big deal because chronic pain is actually a really big deal, and a lot of people are dealing with chronic pain. Fibromyalgia is another very big cause of chronic pain. So let's talk about something really, really important. What causes or contributes to trigger points? Fibromyalgia and other conditions, especially inflammatory ones, sleep deprivation, posture, so bad ergonomics at work, that kind of thing, trauma to the area, so maybe if you were in a car accident and you've had whiplash, you can get trigger points in your neck, excessive or lack of exercise, because our muscles and fascia were made to move, no matter how gently, emotional stress, fatigue, nutritional deficiencies, and excess weight. So those are just some of the causing or contributing factors to trigger points. But what are some of the secondary symptoms? So we know that they can cause referred pain. So when you push on it, it might cause pain somewhere else. So you might not actually even know where that trigger point is. And sometimes other diagnoses can be attributed to trigger points. So trigger points in your chest wall can actually cause a lot of problems in your chest. And also trigger points around your jaw can be mistaken for temporomandibular disorder, TMJ. They mimic that pain, so they can be quite tricky. Also, like trigger points in the neck and shoulders and the base of the skull can actually really wreak havoc on us. So the trigger points at the base of the skull can actually, for me, cause severe migraine-like headaches, dizziness, nausea, and fatigue. So that's quite a lot of secondary symptoms, right? For years, I was trying really hard to live with all of those symptoms, the neck pain and all of those secondary symptoms. And it felt like I was going round and round in circles, and they were saying this is what helps fibro, and those things were not helping. And it just has made such a difference to learn how to treat them. So I guess first we want to do is identify that we have them, then we need to work on treating them. So let's have a chat about treatment for trigger points. So the cool thing about these things, the thing that I love about fibromyalgia and myofascial pain syndrome, is that you can do one or two things and they will hit multiple symptoms. So this is kind of like that. So you need to eliminate as many aggravating factors as possible, right? So if you have fibromyalgia or other conditions, manage them as well as possible. You need to work on sleep. Sleep is king, sleep is vital. You can't really heal in your body without sleep. It's really hard, but it's a thing. You need to work on posture. So for example, I have to be really careful sitting at a computer. My ergonomics have to be correct all the time. And I always have to sleep on my back with my pillow in a certain way. Okay, so those are the sorts of things that you have to do to reduce the perpetuating factors. So other things that you can do, like some of the literature suggests that NSAIDs, non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs, can help. And I find that to be true as well. Heat is fantastic. Heat combined with stretching is also really fantastic. And acupuncture applied by a specific methodology. So what I have found to be the most helpful after doing trigger points, I don't know if anybody here has ever had dry needling, where they just kind of jab a needle into the trigger point and ram it around. Yep, it hurt. I tried that for a while. It didn't help, and it just made my central nervous system go into overdrive because it was so damn painful. So what I have found works better is having little acupuncture needles placed in the trigger point directly and then left alone. So my physiotherapist leaves them for 10 or 15 minutes. And then afterwards, she does some mobilizations and tractions. And then when I'm finished with my treatment, I go home and use my heat pack. So that's the whole heat combined with stretching, combined with acupuncture. So that is actually the best thing that's ever helped, and I've tried a lot of things over the years. I have tried different massage therapists, I've tried different osteopaths and chiropractors and dry needling. I tried all the things, and that's the only thing that has actually made a difference and helped me to kind of manage throughout the week. So whatever may work though, it's likely to be multimodal, and once it's become chronic, it's probably going to be something we have to keep managing ongoing. I've been working on this for a long time, really intensively. I manage it all day, every day, and I think I will have to be managing it for some time more. Unfortunately, once it becomes chronic, it's about management rather than elimination in a lot of cases. So what are these things that we're doing? So we've got heat, we've got medicines, we've got dry needling, we've got acupuncture, stretching or yoga, gentle exercise as part of the whole yoga and stretching, isometric exercises, self-trigger point work. That's really cool. We can do it ourselves. I used to use my finger and my thumb to help me kind of push into those trigger points, but they get really sore now. This joint gets really, really sore. So I have a Theracane trigger point massager, but self-trigger point work is actually really helpful. And then another couple of kind of unique ideas is ultrasound and frequency specific microcurrent therapy. Now in the blog post, so I have a blog post that you can go with kind of a toolkit for you, and there's a couple of links there. So if you're curious about the frequency specific microcurrent therapy, there's a link. The same with ultrasound. Now my physio has started to use ultrasound. She uses it on my lower back, and it's just basically really warm, and I think that my body really responds well to heat, but it's worth looking at, right? Everything is worth trying, especially when it is there's no side effects. So what am I doing at home all the time, every day myself? Because if you've followed me for any amount of time, you know that I am obsessed with things that we can do ourselves. So it's using heat at home. So heat bath, hot bath, hot shower, all those kind of things. Topical creams, so like an essential oil blended pain cream or deep heat or topricin, any of those kind of ones where you're simultaneously applying pain relief but also giving yourself a gentle massage. Using your trigger point massager. So the Theracane trigger point massager is really awesome. It is so helpful, and it is inexpensive, and it helps you get all those bits in your back, but you can just use your finger and your thumb. And resting and pacing. So living within your energy envelope, not upsetting your central nervous system, and getting all your rest and stuff, that's going to help as well. Stretching and yoga. We all know I'm obsessed with yoga. I'm doing stretches and yoga poses pretty much throughout the day. If you watched me for an entire day, like if I was wearing a GoPro, you'd notice I would just drop and do some yoga poses to deal with the pain as I go. Limiting the computer time and having really good ergonomic setup. So I have to be really aware of that. I can't just slip into bad habits. And then medicines, I found that Brufen and ibuprofen can be useful when it's getting to a point where I'm just not managing anymore. And then when my trigger points up here get so bad that the muscles in my neck spasm, then I have to use a muscle relaxant. There's nothing else for it once it gets to that point. Yes, I think you don't really need a strong grip to use a Theracane. So if you're using a Theracane trigger point massager, the really cool thing is that there's like levers that hang off it, so you can kind of just put your arm over it and just kind of let it hang out there. So you don't need to actively push really hard. That's why I really love it, because you do actually have to put quite some pressure into your trigger points, and so you can leverage it quite well. Yeah, hope that helped. Let me know if you have any other questions. So those are the things that I'm doing. You can see that a lot of those things are transferable, which I really love. That's something that can keep us a bit positive. So any of these things that I've just suggested for trigger points actually really help with the fibro, right? They're going to help with general pain and fatigue, which is always good for us. So yeah, they hit multiple symptoms. So things like the pacing, the yoga, the heat packs, the topical creams, the rest, that helps us manage everything better. But you do really need to hit those trigger points as well. So finding them, removing those perpetuating factors and treating them is just super helpful. So that is, I think it's really cool. I think that it's always nice when we have something that we can do ourselves, yeah? So your trigger point toolkit. So in the blog post, which I'll link to, I've got links for these so that you can find them. But I found this really cool book the other day. It's called The Little Book of Self-Care Trigger Points, Using the Power of Touch to Live Life Pain-Free. It is the best thing I've come across in terms of illustrations of where trigger points are and how to treat them. Because because there is a really awesome trigger point therapy workbook, but it's a bit like a textbook, and I've had to reread it several times to really digest some of it, and it's really kind of not great for brain fog. So this little book is really useful, and it's visual, so you can work on each trigger point at a time, because what I think you'll find is if you have chronic trigger points, you're going to need to work on them multiple times, and it can be really overwhelming trying to find which trigger points and treating them. So I think what we need is a simple visual cue, right? And then again, in my little suggestions, the Theracane trigger point massager, that's been really useful, like such a big deal for me, just to be able to do it myself. And the other things are like a foam roller, so that's really great for big areas like your back or your legs or your glutes, and heat pack. So we all know I use my heat pack all the time, right? I'm talking about it all the time. I just got an electric heating pad. It is the best thing ever. Being able to simultaneously use it on my back and my shoulders and my neck has actually made a difference in my neck. So all the time I was having to choose between one or the other. But I have trigger points all over the place, so it was never an easy choice. So now that I can do all of it at once, it's actually making a difference. And also, if you wanted to look into starting to use yoga and stretching for trigger points, I have a free micro course that goes through, well, it's actually meant to be 5 days, but I've actually added an extra 2 poses to it because they are super, super helpful. So in the blog post, there's a link to that as well if you want to try that out and see how that goes for you, because continuing to move is always really helpful. So let me know, do you have trigger points? Did you know that you had them before this talk, or maybe now that we've had this talk, you think maybe you have them? Share the knowledge. Like, what is your favorite thing to do to manage them yourself at home? Who is your favorite kind of professional to see to help you manage it? Are you a chiropractor person, an osteopath person, physio? Or is there anything that I've mentioned that you're going to try? I'd love to hear if you try it and if it helps, because that's kind of the point of all this. Thank you so much for being here. Any questions, pop them in the comments and I'll get back to you. This talk will stay live for 48 hours. The toolkit is always available on the blog, so head over. I'll put a link below, but it's on melissaversefibromyalgia.com, and there's a link on the front page. And if you wanted to get the video, the audio, the PDF toolkit and the worksheet to help you work through it, then that's in the Melissa versus Fibromyalgia membership, so you can have a look into that as well. That's just where we kind of go that little bit deeper on it. Yeah, my physiotherapist knows that I have trigger points. So someone's just said, with my PT, we have suspected that I have myofascial pain, but not sure who to refer to for diagnosis. I mean, in New Zealand, we have such a crazy system, I wouldn't even know where to go, and I've been really burned by anybody other than my GP. But I was actually talking to my GP about it, and he's the most understanding one I've ever had, but even he didn't really mind about it, and he kind of doesn't really mind about a diagnosis of myofascial pain syndrome. So I don't really, at this point, I've decided I'm just going to treat what I have rather than trying to wait for diagnoses, because diagnoses don't even seem to help anything over here anyway. If that's different for you guys and it gets you help, then yeah, try and pursue it. But I guess, do you have a pain clinic, or I don't know who you see anymore? Like, they talk about neurology and rheumatology. Hey, you find that dry needling helps with your pain in your lower back and your legs. That's really awesome. It's not too painful for you? I don't know, for me the central nervous system is key, and by just stabbing and dry needling into those sore muscles and causing the jumping sensation, it just turns my whole body on overdrive. So I found it really painful. I actually did dry needling for 2 years, and I never really found that much benefit, but I had nothing else, so I just kept trying. And then the day that I sat out in the car crying in the front because I didn't want to go in, it was the day I realized I had to find something else to try. But it's so interesting, isn't it, that we're so different, and what can help one person doesn't necessarily help another. So thank you for sharing that, because someone else might try it and that might help them. All right, guys. Well, thank you for you are very lucky then if you have a very high pain threshold. My neck is okay. My neck is used to treatment, right? So I can handle all of those sorts of treatments. But other areas that are new to treatment, I'm quite sensitive. But also it depends, like fatigue levels. If fatigue levels are high, pain threshold is low. Yeah, well, thanks for being here, guys. Thank you for your questions. If you have any more, just pop them in the comment box. Don't forget to jump on over to have a look at the toolkit on the blog, and I'll catch you guys next time.